17, now we have 16, but I wasn't keeping track of who we lost. Okay, I'm going to start. My name is Ann Brodsky. I'm moderating the conversation tonight. I co-chair, along with Denise Roth-Barber, I co-chair the Waste Committee on the Citizen Conservation Board. The Citizen Conservation Board is an advisory board to the city of Helena. We thank you for all coming. We're excited about continuing the conversation. Our first community conversation was on August 18th. I'm guessing most of you who are on this, I recognize most of the names from that event, and we want to continue the conversation tonight and then go on forward. I think just to start, I think today couldn't be a better day to have a meeting about waste reduction in Helena, given the air quality and the change in Helena's air quality in the last couple of days due to the fires on the West Coast. And we all know that those fires on the West Coast could so easily be here in Helena, in Montana, and our hearts go out to those people. And in my estimation, there's nothing more important to be talking about right now than climate change. So thank you for coming and attending. I'm going to just go over a little bit of the agenda before we get started. We're going to start with introductions, first from the members of the Conservation Board, and then we'd ask all the other participants to introduce themselves also. Tell us a little bit about why you're here, if you're professionally, if you're working in the field of waste reduction, or you're involved with an organization, or you're interested as an individual citizen. And then we'd like you to tell us, we're going to break this meeting. This one's going to be a little bit different than our August 18th community conversation. We're going to break this one down into breakout sessions. We'll have 4 breakout sessions, one recycling, another will be food composting, another will be construction deconstruction, and the 4th will be education. So when you introduce yourself, if you could tell us which breakout session you'd like to be in. Diana Hammer is the one controlling the Zoom part of this, and she will control the breakout sessions and put you in the right breakout session so you can participate. Again, it's the 4 breakout sessions are recycling 1, food composting 2, construction deconstruction 3, and education and outreach is the 4th one. And after our introductions, Denise Roth-Barber is going to give a short presentation on the concepts, the waste concepts of upstream, midstream, and downstream diversion of waste. Then we'll go into the breakout sessions, have 20 minutes or so there. Each one of us from the Conservation Board is going to be facilitating. We've got some questions that we've sort of organized to start off the conversation. Someone will be taking notes, and then when we're done with the breakout sessions, we're going to all come back together in one large group. Someone from each breakout session will report back from that group. Then we'll open the meeting up to the larger conversation with all of us. If you have anything you want to say during that open discussion, if you would use the chat function, I guess it's the hand raising. If you go into, you have to hit the participants icon and at the bottom of your screen, or at least that's where mine is. And it says raise hand, and there's a hand that is there. And so if you do that, you can raise your hand and we can not all be talking on top of each other, and then we'll close up the meeting. So that's the agenda for the evening. I want to just tell you something. We did surveys after the last meeting. Many of you may have taken the survey. One survey respondent sent in a link to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, had done a presentation entitled Rethinking Recycling. Very, very interesting. We'll be sending a link out to that to everyone. It was an hour and a half. but really valuable and really interesting, informative. But the speaker started with sort of the basic concept, and although the subject of waste reduction can, as we work our way into it, can get very complex, and there's lots of options to pursue. Ultimately, the goal and the recognition, and I'm taking this from his speech, is that we need to use the Earth's resources below or within a level that our planet can provide. And we need to emit wastes below or within the level that our planet can safely absorb or metabolize in perpetuity. And those are the goals. They're really, really simple. Sort of a basic, common sense formulation. But that's what we're all here to discuss, and I really look forward to talking to all of you about it. And welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So now, if the members of the Conservation Board would introduce themselves, I'd greatly appreciate it. Maybe I'll start with Denise because she co-chairs the Waste Committee with me.
Yep, so I am Denise Barber and the Waste Committee of the Conservation Board. Yeah, I just have always found waste to be a really interesting and important topic, because it's really about our relationship with materials and our way of life. It's really not so much about what happens after we produce the waste. So I'm really excited about helping Missoula, or Helena, move the ball forward on waste reduction here.
Thanks, Denise. Diana, maybe if you could introduce yourself, since you're coordinating the Zoom part of this meeting.
Sure. I'm Diana Hammer. I'm on the Citizen Conservation Board. I'm on the Waste Committee, and I really see us with the pandemic. It's an opportunity to rethink how we've been operating in the probably the last 200 years, and an opportunity to choose how we move forward. And I think reducing our waste footprint is a key part of that in fighting climate.
Patricia?
I'm Patricia Heiser, and I'm on the Waste Committee of the Conservation Board. I'm a professor at Carroll College of Earth Science and Environmental Science. So I try to teach awareness about just what Ann just said about what our planet can provide and what it can absorb. I'm also trying to get Carroll to do a lot better with recycling and with reducing waste that's coming in. So I'm trying to help Carol and my students and Helena. I'm learning a lot. So looking forward to learning more.
And Patricia's going to be leading the education outreach breakout session. I'll be leading the recycling breakout session. And let's see, Stephen?
Sure. My name is Stephen Kostel on the Citizen Conservation Board Waste Committee. And my background is in the construction industry. And I have my LEED AP BD plus C credential, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, with a building design and construction specialty. So really what that means is I'm involved in a lot of projects that have sustainability goals in mind. And one of those areas is actually waste reduction, and you get credit for diverting a percentage of the waste generated by a construction project to the landfill, with all the way up to 95% being exemplary performance. And so it's been really neat to see how that factors into just what we do on a daily basis with construction and how we can make a difference that way. Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Stephen. And I meant to say, Denise is, so Stephen will be facilitating the construction deconstruction breakout session, and Denise is going to be leading the composting discussion. And Shane.
Hi, I'm Shane Sater. I'm a student at Carroll College, and I'm also a field biologist and a gardener. And so especially from gardening, I guess I really enjoy the idea of wastes that we create being products for something else to use to make soil. So I really like that. template for thinking about waste, and I'm excited to be part of this discussion.
Thanks, Shane. And let's see who else. I think that covers all of, oh no, Kathy's not on the waste committee, but she's on our board. So Kathy, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kathy Judeman, and I'm a sometimes participant in the board. Yeah, I'm there so much that you guys would think I was on the board. But very interested in this waste topic and in the amount of savings from carbon that this topic might generate for the city of Helena.
Thanks, Kathy. And Becca, you're on our waste committee, so you're not on the board, at least not yet, but you're on the waste committee, so if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Becca Boslow, and I currently work at the Montana Association of Conservation Districts. And my interest in waste initially came from kind of the climate perspective and thinking at a broad scale about, circular economics and where stuff comes from and where it goes and how that fits into climate solutions. And so I actually worked in Missoula a bit in an AmeriCorps position on some of the zero waste work there a couple of years back. And now that I've moved to Helena, I was excited to find a group also trying to make some of those changes in Helena. So very happy to be here.
Thanks, Becca. And our sustainability coordinator for the city of Helena, who comes to all of our meetings, Pat.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I guess, again, Patrick Judge with the city of Helena as a sustainability coordinator. And happy to see Jackie Pearson on as well from the city staff, representing the solid waste division in Public Works Department. My background is more from the energy policy side of things, but I've been trying to come up to speed as quickly as possible on waste, and I've gotten a great education through this group. And yeah, I would give it a shout out to Kathy Judeman, who is a full-fledged member of the Energy and Transportation Subcommittee. So,
thanks, Pat. So then the rest of you who are not members of these committees or the board, but are here because you're interested, and some of you are heavily involved in waste issues, probably all of you, but why don't we just go, I'll just go, I don't know if everyone's got the tiles in the same order that I do, but the next person I see on there is John Hilton.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to join this discussion. My name's John Hilton, obviously. I'm owner-operator of Helena Recycling. We do the curbside in Helena. Also have a recycling center and a shredding company. So hopefully I can add some valuable information for everybody today.
Thanks. Yeah, we're really glad to hear it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Carl, I don't know if I know you, but I'd love to find out about what you're here. What do you have to tell me?
My name's Carl Johnson. I have a food waste vermicomposting business in Bozeman. So we go around, collect food waste from restaurants, households, businesses, and then compost it, pre-compost it, and then use worms to finish it all off and produce worm castings as our end product, which is a high-end organic fertilizer. And recently just started up a partnership with 406 Recycling, Matt Elsesser, who's also here. So we started doing a residential and commercial program in Helena to start to divert some food waste. And it works really well. It's Matt's backhaul as he comes to Bozeman to collect other recyclables for his business. So it's a really efficient way to get the food waste processed.
Great, thanks, Carl. And I forgot to ask, John would have been the first person that wasn't on the conservation board. Am I correct in assuming you would want to be in the recycling breakout session?
Yes, please.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Carl, I assume food composting? Okay, great, thank you. And then John.
Hi, I'm grad student at MSU. I'm studying architecture, and I'm writing my thesis paper about waste and recycling. And so I'm interested in all things about waste and recycling, but definitely interested in the building and deconstruction group.
That's fantastic. Thanks, John. Great to meet you. Mary, I don't remember how to pronounce your last name, but I know your first name. Can you unmute? There you go.
Hi. Hi. I'm not in any way a professional or interested in the business side of it or anything like that, but I'm just a person who lives in Helena, very concerned about the environment, try to do my part as far as not buying plastic things and recycling, and I'm concerned about just the general way the society has gone for the past several years as far as waste and not reusing and recycling things. So I don't have any expertise, but I'm just interested.
Well, Mary, we're really glad that you're here. I don't have any expertise either, so there's a high learning curve, but it's really interesting, and it's never a dull moment. So do you have a particular breakout session that you'd like to go to?
I can't remember what they were, sorry.
Like 1, recycling, 2, food compost, 3, construction, deconstruction, and 4, education.
Recycling.
Okay, thank you. And then Sean.
Oh, you're muted.
My name's Sean Doty. I own Missoula Compost Collection here in town, and also helped write the zero waste plan for the city of Missoula. Just here to, if I can help out with your guys' project or collaborate with some other businesses potentially that are doing some compost collecting.
Fantastic. Good to meet you, Sean, because we've talked a couple times, and I assume you went to the food waste breakout session.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Matt. You're on mute.
Yes, okay. Matt Elsesser, I've been involved with recycling really in Helena since about the fall of '99 at Carroll College, and then I've also been on the city commission. So I currently run 406 Recycling. You can see some electronics in the background, and the buckets from some of the food waste collection that Carl mentioned, that partnership we're very excited about. We're picking up from households and businesses tomorrow, and we swap out a bucket and they're able to recycle or set aside their food waste and a lot of other compostables. So that's exciting. And we do a household collection of electronics as well. So I'm not sure everyone knows that. And we do a little bit of a data destruction partnered with John. So if someone does have up to John Hilton, if there's a banker's box of paper, we'll take that when we take old computers and televisions as well. Thanks.
That's great. And which breakout session would you want to go into, Matt?
Well, I'd probably do, are we just down to 2 now, or are there the 4?
Well, there's 4. There's recycling, food composting, construction, deconstruction, and education.
Okay. I'll stick with food waste.
Yeah. That's great. Jackie.
Hello. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad to see you guys again. I work with the City of Helena Solid Waste. I'm part of the interlocal agreement with the county. So I'm a city employee and I work out at the Lewis and Clark County landfill. I'm kind of hosting the tour on the 25th with Pete Anderson. Great. So I'll hopefully see you guys out there. Of course, I'm on, the landfill side, but I'm interested in diversion and the more we can take out of that. My thesis paper was on a zero waste Montana as a whole, zero landfilling. So this is an interesting group I'm hopeful, and I'm excited to see what we can come up with. I would be interested in the construction deconstruction.
Great. Then looks like, did Bob Rasmussen disappear? I don't see him now. So, Cora, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Cora.
You can unmute yourself. I don't know. Cora?
Let's come back to Cora. She may have stepped away.
Okay, could be, that's right. Doug? Hi there. Are you around, Doug?
Now I'm unmuted.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, hold on. Go ahead. Go on, Cora.
Okay. I'm on a different computer that has no camera, and I had to set up my audio, so I hope it's working. I am the owner of LC Compost Solutions, which is a small business in Helena, and I have a small composting facility in the Helena Valley, and I compost dead animals and slaughter waste and some food waste. I don't want to take a bunch of food waste composting. I had some email interactions with other people. I have a very small facility, and what I really want to do is facilitate composting of food waste in Helena by others. And I am also very much interested in education and outreach. And so far it sounds like Patricia doesn't have any people in her group for education and outreach, but I am working now with a couple of different groups to start food waste composting. So I should probably be in the food waste composting group, but I am very much interested in teaching others how to compost, why it's important, the whole climate change thing, greenhouse gases, you name it. I'm interested in all that. Also construction, deconstruction, Denise's group. So I'm interested in all of it, but primarily I'm a composter of dead animals right now.
And you will be in the food breakout session, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cora. Super interesting to hear all that. Everyone's got a different niche, and that's really cool. Doug, hi there. You're muted.
Go.
There you go.
Hi, Doug Haberman. I know a number of you. I have an interest in this. I lived in Hell about 2 years. I worked for Bike Walk Montana. And I guess I'm interested. I'm kind of a single person guy. I'm thinking that we should be putting less stuff in the dump. So I guess I'm interested in the construction and deconstruction work group.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Good to see you. Mike. Someone named Mike, but I don't know. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Mike Jungers. I'm with Tri-County Disposal and Valley View Landfill. I would say we're interested in all phases of it, really. Currently, we have started a composting program at our landfill. It's in its infancy right now, but like everyone else, I think we're interested in seeing a lot less get buried. And composting's a fantastic idea. I just think there's a lot of ideas out there, and we're here to support it best way we can. Dead animals is a huge one as well. Like Jackie can attest to, there's a lot of game, horses, that kind of thing that comes into our landfill. Composting is an interesting way to deal with it, and I think it's a lot easier on the ears for customers as well, especially with a horse. You know, and then you get into the food scrap side of things. It's just something we're curious to see where it goes, and we're here to support it any way we can.
Great, that all sounds really interesting, Mike. And which of the breakout sessions would you want to be in? I can repeat them for you if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could. I was 15 minutes late to the meeting.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we'll have 4 breakout sessions. One is, and so we're all going to be in one. And recycling is one, food composting is another, construction, deconstruction is another, and then education outreach is another.
Explain construction, deconstruction, because I missed that.
Let me take that one, Ann? Yeah. So that one would be anything from the materials that are used on a construction site. There's often waste generated. Say, for instance, as you're framing, anywhere from maybe 10 to 15% can be waste, but that can also be recycled, as we know. So just thinking of ways to improve the recycling of those materials, and also thinking of ways to divert a lot of the demolition waste as well. Because oftentimes demolition, the building comes down all at once, and so it's all in one dumpster versus potentially taking a little more time to deconstruct it more than demolish it. So that's what we'll be talking about primarily.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I'd put me more in the construction, deconstruction side of it, and maybe Chance Sparrow on the composting side of it. He's unable to be with us today, but that's definitely his primary interest right now.
Yeah, and just because you're in one group today doesn't mean that you're locked in this group forever. So, and yeah, Chance sent me an email, so I heard from her, and she said she couldn't be. So that, I think that's everyone. Matt said he's calling user 1. He left the video portion of this. So we have a lot of people in construction, deconstruction. 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in food, and we have 2 in recycling. Is that what you count, Diana?
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Let me see. I have Denise and Shane and Carl and Matt in food. Did I miss someone?
I didn't count Denise. I wasn't counting Denise. So.
Oh, who are the other 2? I'm sorry.
Sean, Matt, Carl, and Cora.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Okay. I thought, okay. And then for C&D, I have Stephen and Kathy leading the discussion, note-taking with John, Jackie, Doug, and Mike. And then
John. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. John, Doug, Mike, and Jackie. Yes.
And then in recycling, I have Anne and Patrick leading the discussion and note-taking with John Hilton and Mary.
Right.
And then in education and outreach, Patricia and Becca.
Yeah. So none of the sign-in folks. Let's see. There's some chat going on here. Oh, let's see. Oh, someone's dog is barking. I'm sorry. That is my dog. And I'm going to try to get him inside in a minute. I apologize. Hank, we'll get to know him probably pretty well. So no one is in the education outreach group. I guess the question is, does anyone in any of the others want to volunteer to go in there? Or does anyone else, Patricia, you have an idea maybe?
Well, you know, even when you guys assigned me this, we had this discussion of what is education outreach communication, and it kind of runs across all of the groups. I mean, all the groups are a thing, and I think the outreach, education, communication is what ties them together and makes the connection to other people. So what I sent out like a little outline thing. I could maybe spend 2 minutes at the end talking about the ideas of education outreach after the breakout groups, and then I could join another breakout group because it's a little bit different. And I learned a lot thinking about it. So I could do that now, or maybe in the discussion part, just go over some of the thoughts I had about what education outreach and communication are, and how it might tie all of those together. So.
I think that's a great idea, Patricia.
The only other idea I had was whether, and I didn't know if Diana could arrange this for Patricia, but whether Patricia could float into, Patricia said she could join one other group, or whether she could float among a few of the groups, and then the groups could have a little education discussion when Patricia joins them in their discussions. Is that something, Diana, that you could do or that you would want to do, Patricia?
It might be better since it ties to everything instead of, I might have the same conversation in different groups. So it might be better just to kind of, after the groups come back and maybe report out, or I can kind of summarize it, you know, and then everybody could sort of think about how it would tie in.
Okay,
so.
That's great. And then, so that means you and Becca, which breakout session would you, both of you, like to be in?
I'll go into construction deconstruction.
Great.
I'm torn between food and recycling, but I'm trying to get Carol to recycle and compost food, but I'll go to recycling because that has fewer people in it too. So
that's great.
I'll do recycling.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to break into the breakout sessions, and Diana's going to.
I was going to talk.
Excuse me. Sorry, Denise.
That's okay.
Denise is going to give a presentation about upstream, midstream, and downstream. I apologize.
Just a few minutes, and I think a lot of folks in this group are pretty savvy to that concept, but we did want to kind of introduce it. So Diana was going to share a screen.
Can you hang on just 1 second? I'm still assigning people to their rooms. If you want to just,
oh, yeah.
I had to recreate them because we changed the composition, so I'm sorry.
Right. So basically, you know, the concept that I was first became familiar with was the Missoula zero waste policy, and it started to talk about, you know, upstream, midstream, and downstream. And I hadn't ever really thought of it in those terms, so I was interested in it. And once I got my head wrapped around what they meant, I really liked that, the visual. And it's actually parallels quite nicely with the waste management hierarchy that many agencies and governments and localities currently at least try to live by, which is, you know, the very first thing you want to do is reduce your waste in the first place so that you don't have anything to deal with. And what I wanted to talk about today is in part is like, we all can do things individually, of course, and talk to others about what they can do individually. But with regards to a zero waste plan in Helena, if that's in fact what we end up doing, you know, we also want to look at some system changes. And by that, I mean, you know, what city policies do we want to advance? Going into the community, and this is part of Patricia's outreach portion of the communication and education program, is literally just going out to the community, meeting up with different people, businesses and organizations, to see what they can do to reduce their waste stream, find out really what the obstacles are, what would it be incentives for them to do so. And hang on, I was a little thrown off because I had my visuals, so give me a second.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I can pivot. So I just, go ahead.
I'm ready to share now.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. We can go maybe into slideshow mode.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So, you know, we all, even the best of us who do a lot of work to not create waste, we still do. And Americans on average produce 4.3 pounds of waste a day. And as many folks will tell you, we cannot recycle our way to zero waste. So while this group is in fact going to spend a fair amount of time trying to figure out ways to increase our recycling, increase our composting, at the very same time, we really want to focus on how do we work on the upstream angle of this. We want to prioritize a circular economy where reduced consumption diverts waste from the landfill. So I'm kind of reading that. There's an organization called Upstream, and that is underlined in the last bullet, because when you get this meeting, when you get the recording of this meeting and all, you can actually click on the PowerPoint, and that's a link to a group called upstream.org. There's a lot of groups out there now, and they have a lot of really good ideas about how to help cities figure out ways to reduce their upstream waste. So next slide, please, Diana. You know, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is basically, this is the, you know, also the Montana Solid Waste Integration, Montana Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan, that this is what they want to see throughout: source reduction, reuse. And now we have a new one called refuse. So for example, you go out to eat and you refuse the straw, the plastic lid, the you bring your own leftover containers, which I've yet to do. Good idea. It's hard to implement. So, and landfilling is really the last, but recycling and composting. And John Hilton, don't fear this, but really, the better we do, the less we recycle, and that actually has happened. Yeah, what's that?
I said I concur. I agree.
Yeah. Sure. And so I'm part of John's recycling program, and we have made some changes to our own household purchasing. And so our recycling, especially of plastics, has gone way down. So the idea isn't like, great, I can just have, you know, this bottle as long as I recycle. It's more, for me, I love LaCroix, and I've given them up because I have a soda maker. So I have to get my bubbles that way, and then I don't have cans, or so those kind of various things. So next slide. This is that waste management hierarchy that we're really, really wanting to focus, you know, as this community and this group advances. And, you know, we could just become a waste reduction group that, you know, really, really works hard and succeeds in a great recycling and compost program. But we actually want to go further than that. And we really want to figure out how do we get entities, both individuals and agencies and companies, to reduce. So we're just wanting to hammer that a lot so we can make sure we focus on that. Okay, next slide. I'll just be wrapping this up here shortly. Again, this is the Montana Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan, and when you get the link to this meeting, you'll have the links to these plans, or you can just Google it yourself. But again, all of this, you know, upstream, midstream is similar to this kind of hierarchy. Next slide. I saw this the other day, and I really like it because I'm a visual person. You know, currently we are very much a linear economy. The recycling economy, we take a lot of the stuff that we make and we recycle it, and then it eventually ends up in the waste. So that circular economy, it's obviously not going to be an empty trash can, but all but. So that's really what we're going for. And I really like this particular image. Go ahead. So this is from the Missoula Zero Waste Plan. The upstream solutions are source reduction strategies that equate to using fewer resources. I'm not going to get into this too much, but I really also like the midstream solutions. So one of the things we've run across from other groups is, oh, Diana, help me. What do they call them? The garages?
Repair cafes and the library.
Right, where you share, maybe in a certain neighborhood, you all pitch in and buy a chipper that you don't need your own, but you now share it. And, or you, I would love to be part of a group that puts together a repair cafe where maybe quarterly we get people who know how to fix things, and so that I could bring certain pieces of equipment that I cannot fix and fix them rather than just toss them and buy a new one. So those are kind of upstream, midstream. So next slide. Again, you know, I won't get into this because so much of us are already all over this. So that's just what we can each do individually. Next slide. And then I took some of this from Missoula and then also, I think it was Fort Collins, Colorado. This is some of the things that, you know, city policies that we could lobby for and encourage our city. Like for a while when I lived in Wisconsin, you could not, in the rural areas, you literally could not throw recyclable materials into the dump. You had to recycle them. We could promote some policies like that to help us achieve our goal. The city itself can look into their purchases and services and figure out what they can do with their own operations. Green building and local food production, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we're just trying to introduce this concept. This group is wanting to go well beyond sort of recycling and composting. Is that the last slide, Dana? Yep. Okay, that's it.
All right, so now I'm going to stop sharing and bring you all back. Now I'll put you all into breakout rooms, so bear with me because I'm not an expert Zoom moderator here. And we'll have 20 minutes in the breakout rooms, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning. All right?
For the note taker, are you okay with reporting back?
Sure.
Great. Let's just move on to the report backs.
Okay. Yeah, so Ann led it off just kind of describing the situation in Helena, that we've had recycling since 1992, but after an initial increase, it's really kind of flattened out in recent years, and we could be doing a whole lot more. And posed the question, what are the things that we could be doing to really increase the diversion rates? And we had a lot of knowledgeable input from John Hilton in the industry, and talking about, you know, Bellingham, Washington, and Seattle, and how you could, you know, make it mandatory that either it's a mandatory pay type system where everyone is paying into it, and so you might as well be participating in it, or even going further, a mandatory put out where you're fined if you're not recycling something. So, you know, policies like that. And Mary gave some great perspective just about seeing the evolution of how people have related to their material waste. Back in the day when it was very common to have, you know, reusable bottles from milk or Coke bottles or whatnot. We talked about, you know, bottle bill deposit type states. Patricia brought that up, and how that definitely increases diversion rates. That's kind of statewide policy. Patricia, in her role as a professor at Carroll College, has students coming in from Washington and Oregon that are just kind of shocked because they grew up with a culture and habit of recycling and a much easier system to operate within, and struggle when they get here and don't have those same opportunities. Let's see. So yeah, making it easier. Mary really emphasized that, just because a lot of people with their 2 jobs and kids and even having sufficient space in their home for storing the bins can be a challenge. John brought up the weather in Montana, the snow and the winds blowing things around. And so just kind of grappling with all these issues, but I don't know, we were kind of cut off early. Anne was, talking about increasing maybe the rollouts. Those seem to be very successful, those kinds of neighborhood type bin collection efforts. But John kind of closed things up by suggesting that really curbside seems to be the way to go in terms of getting high participation and low contamination. And, you can kind of get into the debates about single stream versus source separated from there.
The one thing I wanted to ask Pat, and I apologize because I got a couple of texts in here from people trying to get on. Did you mention Mary's comment about needing to make it easy?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I think that's a huge one. So, okay. Thanks. That's great. Great report.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, guys.
Food waste.
Well, we actually also did not pick someone to do the report out. And so is there anyone who would like to do the report out?
I mean, I was taking notes and listening, so I'd be happy to, unless someone else would really like to.
I think it's all yours.
Okay. Well, as Denise mentioned, we were really just getting into the conversation and it was getting super interesting. So I wish we had had more time. But we talked about a lot of the efforts that have already had some time under their belts in Missoula and Belgrade/Bozeman as far as composting, and then how with Matt and Carl, we're expanding that to Helena. And I guess one kind of major theme was just the advantage of starting small with private businesses doing recycling. That there's an advantage there as far as education and direct relationships with customers who are contributing food waste. That can really help with education and avoiding contamination issues. But at the same time, it seemed like we were all thinking that the idea would be to transition from that towards, as more people are on board with it and are educated about how to separate stuff correctly and stuff, to be able to expand it out to some sort of larger municipal program. But that the trade-off there is that potentially it's less expensive because it can be subsidized through tipping fees or taxes, but at the same time, there's a bigger contamination issue. And Carl brought up that the city of Bozeman is looking at starting a program to collect compost municipally, but to lump food waste and yard waste together. And that's potentially problematic because of contamination from herbicides and stuff in yard waste. And so it's just impossible having that all be single source to create really high value organic compost from it, like he can with his food waste. So yeah, I guess just that it seemed like we were all kind of on the same page about both those trade-offs with private versus public programs, and that starting smaller with private stuff like we're doing now is a good way to start, but that there's potential to explore how we can expand that and whether there are ways to restructure the fees and the taxes that go towards waste to somehow incorporate composting without it being an extra cost. But that if we do that, there's this education piece is really important, and figuring out how we can have a high quality product that's not contaminated.
That was great, Shane. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Great, yeah, great start of a conversation. Deconstruction, Stephen.
Sure, yeah.
Taking notes for you. Oh,
yeah.
I do know. It's Kathy.
Kathy was taking notes for us, yes. I can give a brief overview if you'd like. So we talked about some of the challenges that are currently present in the construction and deconstruction process. And really it was, came down to the on-site separation, and there's not too many incentives right now for building contractors to do that on-site separation. And unless the project has been designated as a lead project by the owner. And so just making that more of a standard practice across the industry, the construction industry, to have different bins for different materials essentially, so that they go to the proper recycling area can be a huge advantage. And then even increasing the availability of local places to recycle certain materials. For instance, like we didn't really identify a place to recycle drywall in Helena yet. And just with my experience so far, we've been working with a company out of Belgrade to recycle drywall. So making some of those materials that are common to construction easier to recycle in Helena was a big piece. And then the overall, let's see, Becca had a great point about Missoula. They have a company called Home Resource, because it's similar to the Habitat Restore, which of course we have here in Helena, that they provide like tax incentives or tax credits for donating deconstruction type materials. So just encourage, I think the big thing too there would be tying in that education outreach piece to inform the local contractors that that's available and that's an option, and that there is a financial incentive for them to be diverting that those materials that are still salvageable. Then there was a comment about that when contractors pull a demolition or submit for a demolition permit, that they receive a packet with some information about ways to reduce waste and to divert the waste. And building on that, Jackie mentioned to have that included in every time a building permit is pulled. So you have that information going out to those contractors as a way to promote the education on the front end, so that as they start their projects, they're already thinking about like, how can we feasibly make this happen and divert that waste. And the last thing that we talked about was just creating some more educational materials, educational outreach for building or owners of projects, whether it's developers or companies or individuals, whoever it may be, that they can also have that information on how to build a more sustainable project. And a lot of that ties into the LEED rating system for buildings, but also it's just the standard sustainable principles that are starting to become more mainstream and more common practice, but they're not always common knowledge, right? So just making it more accessible to people who are building projects all over. Definitely good conversation. Agreed. Could have had more time to keep going with it. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Patricia, I know, so Patricia was disconnected for a little bit and just came back on. So glad to see you here, Patricia. I'm sorry you missed the reporting back. But we are recording this, and we'll put the recording on the Conservation Board website so people can go back and listen, and other people who couldn't be here could listen as well. But Patricia, you were gonna wrap up in some big to talk about education in the groups. You need to unmute.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My new webcam works, but my computer just froze and I had to restart everything. So anyway, I just caught the end of that. When you guys kind of assigned me the outreach education stuff, and we're wondering, like, what is that? Is that working with schools or institutions? And so I just started thinking about what is that? And it seems like this big thing that's kind of many things. So I just sort of sniffed around at different programs, and also just what is the difference between outreach and education and communication. And there are differences, and it seems like what I found was that outreach is kind of efforts or communication efforts that that produce a reaction to a topic. So outreach is what you do. You try to identify your groups, and it's an invitation or inspiration to, I guess, incite engagement or action. So it's kind of the who do we want to reach and why, what will we tell them? Why should they be involved and acting? So that's kind of the outreach part. Education seems to be, from what I kind of put together, longer term intensive exposure, conveying information to a targeted audience about a specific subject. So education about food waste, education about recycling, education about construction, and providing knowledge, skills, tools, you know, that kind of stuff needed to achieve the action. So outreach is the who and why, education is how to do it. And then communication seems like all of it. So like a clearinghouse, one-stop shopping, and we see, you know, the webpage for Zero Waste Missoula and, you know, other programs. And that's more like the facilitating the flow of all the information. So probably from our committee, even our groups within our committee to each other, our committee to the city, the government, to the public. So it's sort of, I can see that as the hub, the information hub, the integrating part of an integrated waste plan. So that's kind of what I sort of distilled out of trying to figure out what is education, outreach, and communication. And the questions that I kind of put up for a potential group, you know, would be, you know, what would be priority actions? Where do we see a need for outreach? Who do we need to reach, and how do we engage? What are roadblocks and challenges? And that seems to be the education part. You know, how can we provide training, tools, resources to do things? And then, you know, the communication would be sort of the big, maybe the website with all of it. You know, how do we get that moving, and what would be first steps and things like that? Because just looking at different programs and websites, like Missoula Zero Waste is really comprehensive, and the history and definition of zero waste and all these things. And then other places, it's like, how do you get rid of your paint cans, and how do you dispose of things? And I think we have to start thinking about how and where and in what way we want to communicate, and then where those outreach and education parts come in. So that was kind of what I came up with. It seems like this is going to have threads in all the groups and all the actions that we're trying to do. Sort of the glue or the threads connecting all of it would be outreach, communication, and education. So that's what I got.
So we were going to turn the last part of this meeting into an open discussion, which we still can, but I might also see if, as part of that, people want to focus on the education piece of this for their various topics, but I don't want to limit anyone. If there's anything, you know, that someone said about a group that you weren't in that you'd like to pursue, feel free to say that. And we would suggest you use under the participants link and raise your hand. And that would be a way to communicate if anyone has anything that they want to say as part of the open discussion.
Matt has his hand raised, and then Denise.
Great. Matt?
Yeah, just following what Patricia said, and I think a lot of the discussions, just a key component of that education is obviously how these things work operationally. And I thought it was great hearing from all the three other groups, just the technical things they were looking at, how you have sort of the dedicated customers who are going to do high quality control versus the broader aspect. So I just think that structural piece of sort of making sure there's not a hole in the bucket with the infrastructure, and talking about that structural stuff where the waste reduction and alternatives are there, whether it's alternative weekly collection or smaller bins or the community bins, like we were touched on in our group, that's just going to be a key aspect too. Okay. Oh, sorry, that's all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt.
And Denise is next.
Denise.
Yeah, so, you know, as part of the whole outreach, for example, I would love to separately reach out to both Carl and Sean and talk to you guys about the businesses that you pick up the food waste, because I'm pretty sure, I mean, and also, Matt, I don't know if that's what your program is going to do as well, but I would love to learn about how restaurants, for example, can compost, and what were the obstacles that these businesses that currently compost, that they got over. And I would love to know, how much are they, benefiting financially from composting, or are they not? Because before I could go to a restaurant as part of this outreach to get them to compost their stuff, I have to know a little bit more about, what I don't know anything about it. So, they would be like, what, you don't know anything about restaurants. And so that would be part of the outreach. So Carl and Matt and Sean, I'll be talking with you after this about that.
All right, thanks, Denise. Stephen, you had your hand up?
Yes, I think you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I think the two big things that came out of our conversation in terms of the education and outreach was connecting with building contractors and connecting with building owners. And then in addition to that, also in general promoting sort of the sustainable principles associated with the LEED rating system in a simple format for both of those groups. And because not all the projects that are built are designated as LEED projects, but the principles behind them are definitely achievable to some measure on every project. So just making that effort to reach out to those contractors and owners so they know that those principles and practices are available.
All right, Anne, I don't see any other hands raised. So.
Okay, boy, thanks everyone. I guess I just am going to add my own, my own interest here is I'm with Mary. Maybe I can't even see if she's still here. But the simple is essential in terms of, and I can see where in each thing that we're talking about, so when I think about recycling, to me, simple is key. If I think about construction, deconstruction, it's not so simple anymore. So I guess it depends on what you're talking about. But communication, the simpler the communication, I think the better. And I would love to see, we don't have a home resource organization in Helena, so maybe it's our city. I saw the Flathead County, so it's a local governmental website, which had information that was so simple about how you do what, and it discussed the concepts, the upstream, the refuse, reuse, it discussed those, but then on the subject that I was talking about today, recycling, very simple. Here's where it can be done. Here are the stores that take these products and so forth. It was clean, it was simple, and I just think that's so critical to a successful program. Anyway, that's not my role as facilitator. That's my hand up from my little comment. But I guess that's it for this evening's conversation.
And I'm just going to start sharing my screen so we can wrap up. And I just want to to interject. We can continue. We said the meeting would end at 8:30, but we can stay on and continue the conversation if folks wish for a little bit.
Well, and the other, and maybe you're going to say this in the wrap up, so if you are, I apologize, Anne, but the other thing that we want to do is have like individual meetings about each of these topics. We just wanted to have this one meeting first, but so for example, I think we'll have a meeting where we talk strictly about composting, both yard waste and or food, or another meeting, where we talk only about construction and deconstruction, and another meeting, right? So that, and we'll have different people then engaging with that. So this is just the first of, we hope, many conversations, and some of which in the future will be more in depth about each of those.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Denise. That's right. So, from this, we're going to put together a summation of the notes that the note takers were taking and compile them together, put them on our website. We can send them out, and a link to all of you who participated and those who didn't participate but whom we invited. There'll be a recording this recording will be on our website as well. We will likely do we may or may not do another survey. We're going to compile the results of the survey and get that out to all of you so you can see what other people said. There was interesting comments and interesting further links to information and resources. The Oregon DEQ that I told you about at the very beginning of the meeting that had I thought some new and different ways of thinking about the subjects we're talking about. And we will be having continuing conversations. Our waste committee, I think Jackie mentioned, our waste committee was we requested and we were invited. We're going to have a tour of the landfill. At this point, the tour, they like to only keep that, especially in COVID times, down to like 18, 20 people. I think we've got that filled up. But the landfill does do tours if people want a tour. That can be arranged as well as tours of the transfer station to members of the public or groups. So we will be back in touch with all of you. We look forward to continuing this conversation. One little side thing that I guess I want to mention, and if anyone wants to shoot me an email about this afterwards, there was a Zero Waste Helena Facebook page that has been taken down, which I'm tremendously sorry about and can't seem to get it back up because the person who was administering it didn't want to anymore. And so maybe a few of us can talk about setting up another Zero Waste Facebook page too. But that's all that we have right now for this formal part of the meeting. Really happy to see everyone here. Really enjoyed the conversations, learned a lot from my group and as well from the others that reported back. I look forward to listening to the tape again, actually. Does anyone else have anything they want to say at this point? Feel free if you do. Okay, well, I guess we'll call that go ahead.
I just thought Matt posted in the chat that there is a Zero Waste Helena Facebook page.
No, that was the one that Michelle was sponsoring, but she took it down.
Oh, I'm sorry, zerowastehelena.com. It's a web page, sorry.
Oh, okay, great.
Sorry, I misread that.
There's a zerowastehelena.com. There's a website called Zero Waste Helena.
This is Matt. It's there. That doesn't replace something like a Facebook group, but is something that's maybe a more, sort of a resource for folks who aren't on Facebook. We created a website back in the end, Plastics in Helena days, just so there would be something where people who weren't on Facebook could see those resources. So anyways, I have that website for when it's ready for whatever comes next.
And I would just mention also Resilient Helena, resilienthelena.org has a initiatives page, and there's stuff on zero waste there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the Conservation Board has a list of resources, zero waste resources, that we will be expanding on, but it's on our website, which is a part of the City of Helena's website.
Great.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? We really, really appreciate all the interest and participation and hearing the various voices and ideas. The conversation is really important. We all know that. So thank you very much. I guess that will conclude the meeting.
Good job.
Yeah.
And thank you for
Very well
having
done.
us.
Yeah, great to see everyone. Thanks for attending.
Thank you
For moderating. All right. Bye, everyone.